It's Tuesday, and you know exactly what that means. That means you, along with all your closest friends and probably the majority of YouTube, are sitting down for another CoCoville Tuesday. We're on episode 5 now. It's starting to get hard to keep track. No, this might be 6, actually. This is 6. Never mind. Um, I'm not even going to edit that out. We're just going to leave it. We're going to roll with it. So, this episode, and the main thing we're going for, if you followed along from 5, is basically we've expanded to this area, and the next unlock for our city is the harbor, which I just checked there. So basically, we're just kind of looking over things here. Again, I didn't do these ones back to back like I did with the first 3 or 4. So I was just kind of going over the road layouts. I noticed that this was a bit jammed up. I basically only have one route from kind of this southeast side to get through to basically the whole south end of the city. So we just got the harbor there. We'll get to that shortly. But yeah, this main road here, and I revisit it later in the episode, kind of ends up being almost a mandatory road for all these cars to go on, which isn't good. So we address that in a bit as well. Now the harbors, originally, like I mentioned, I wanted them kind of in that river that leads into the little lake in the middle of the city. That didn't happen. It would not allow me to do that, and none of the areas that I had unlocked had access to harbors, so I had to buy a new one. I was thinking about going left, but my city's kind of off to the right so far, so I end up just buying this little outcrop here, which will give another kind of little bay and waterfront area. It is quite hilly, which I don't fully tackle in this. I find terrain editing to be a bit of a pain in this game, but this little inlet here I end up using for our harbors. I'm sure you would have seen that in the title screen for this anyways, but what a thumbnail. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, we start off with this. I'm not totally satisfied with how this all ended up being laid out. I might edit it a bit later down the line, but I think for the most part it works out. We do have the highway running. Well, it will be running between this new section and the southern part of the city, which is good. That's kind of what we want. That way we can have people quickly moving kind of north-south and later on even west as well, without them having to clog up the main roads. So I did want to have it so they didn't have to go on the highway to be able to access these two halves, I guess. So I put a couple access points here. There should be more. I make a few here, and it works out pretty well at the start, but right at the end of the video, I guess that's a little spoiler, but it's pretty obvious that I need to add more, because people were getting on the highway on one side just to get off on the other side, and it's not ideal. So we end up working on that a little bit as well. I did also, yeah, you can see I looked there to see if I could have just passenger ferries kind of in a few different places and use that as another method of transportation rather than just, again, people having to use those access roads over the highway. Didn't get to that, but it's something I might look at later. It's kind of hard just because there's only really one other spot I can put one, and it's not that far from the first one, so it might not happen, which would be fine anyways. But yeah, you can see here I kind of just added more exits. I add a few. I think for the most part they work fine. They're not the prettiest thing. Again, yeah, I couldn't find a way to get south access there, so I ended up having to put it on a separate bridge. I should have put all the ramps there on that bridge. I didn't really think about it, so that's something I might change later as well. Like I said in the last episode, I have a tendency to just make things so they work, and then later on, as long as I have the attention span for it, I just go back and basically fix everything. But another issue I always have in this game is I never want to, like, say there's a building on a road, and if I want to change the road, that building has to be destroyed. I would never really do that. just because I didn't want to, tear a building down. But I did kind of tell myself I would stop doing that if I needed to. And here, I wanted a roundabout, but I couldn't. Like the two prefab ones weren't working, so I ended up just making my own. It ended up looking really good. I got those connected up fine, but I couldn't really get the highway access working. And then right here, it just broke the circle. It's not a circle at all anymore. I don't know why it did that, because it was a perfect circle that I had. So I had to remake it again, and it's pretty close to the same as what it was, but I ended up just making a new ramp off of that in a different spot that I really don't think I should have put there, but again, that's one of the things I might revisit later on. Yeah, not the prettiest thing in the world, but it, for the most part, works out. I do end up having weird mixes of above the highway and below the highway, when in reality, for the most part, I feel like most things just go over highways rather than random tunnels underneath, probably because they're way more expensive. One other thing I need to kind of start doing, just for the sake of realism, is if I do have something go under the highway, I need to dig it out with the terrain tool rather than have it just be a tunnel, which is kind of the lazier way of doing it, I guess. But so yeah, I realized I was gonna have a lot of passengers coming in here, and obviously I need to connect them. So I added a metro, and I'm still trying to keep with it. It's somehow still working. That the metro is basically just one giant loop, which probably isn't super ideal in the sense that right now I only have it going one way. So if you want to go the opposite, like against the path the train's taking by even one stop, you have to go all the way around the city, which isn't great. So I think I'll add another line that just goes in that same loop but the opposite direction, and that should help kind of alleviate that. And I wanted to get a railway line down. I never really used them for just transport in the city, but I know, like, just in real life, basically, they do get used fairly often. Like, if I want to go into the city, I take a train. So I did want to have trains actually be a part of this city, and I ran out of money, which, not a huge problem. I know I said last episode that I have so much money that I can't possibly run out, but I can, and I did. So I had to wait a little bit. I tried messing with the quays, but I forgot that you pretty much have to put the quay first and then any of the buildings after, otherwise it'll just break. So later on I may end up doing that, just do the quay and then try and level this out a bit too, because you can see it's basically a cliff, which isn't ideal. It's not really a nice waterfront at all. I do like the beach that's kind of further down, so I'm hoping I can use that a bit as well, but there's no real way to make the beach act like an actual beach in the vanilla game, as far as I know. It's just treated like terrain. People don't really go there. So you can see here, I ended up taking down a couple commercial buildings to be able to connect the trains. And it basically ended up doing the same thing, where it's just a loop, and then obviously they all accept outside trains as well. So there could be people that come from different areas. Here I saw it was ridiculously expensive if I had that underground, so I thought, well, I'll just put it above ground. Again, trains do travel above ground, so it makes sense for the most part. And then down here I knew I was going to have a lot more roads and residential, so I put that back underground. I was considering putting a cargo train terminal down by the ferries, but it didn't really make sense with how the game works, because it would just be cargo would go from the ferry to a business, and then a business would have to drive all the way over to the train terminal, and then the train terminal would take it out of the city. It's not really like real life where, you have a ferry, that ferry loads the train, that train goes into like city areas, and then it goes into trucks. They're basically two separate things. I've tried upgrading the roads in front of those two ferry things, and you can't anymore. I thought I used to be able to, but I guess not. Had I known that, I probably would have just made it basically have a main road that's larger and then like a little off road that goes to the ferries, but I didn't do that. And this area, I noticed, again, like I mentioned earlier, was getting a lot of traffic. It is still moving, but I realized basically from that roundabout to the smaller roundabout, there's no way to get there. Or sorry, from to this bigger one that I'm building a road to, so they all had to go through the smaller roundabout, which was causing problems. So I realized I could just put a road from there, and then there's kind of two paths that all the trucks and stuff can take, so they can go to the north. I'm using hand gestures and pointing at my screen, like you can see that. I don't know why. But yeah, the only other major thing that we haven't unlocked really is the airport, which I originally wanted where this highway is, but I don't think I really realized or remembered just how far along you have to be before you can get that. So I'll probably end up putting it either on the south side, or we have a lot to the west that we haven't really done anything with. So it might go there as well. It's just a pain because, one, you want it right by a highway, and two, it's a lot of noise pollution. So you don't really want offices or residential near it. So it makes it a little tricky, but I think there should be enough room to stick it in. And yeah, I went a little ADHD, I guess, after this, and I just started looking at basically what we did last episode. Yeah, you can see here now I do. I kind of stuttered because I thought I did it quicker. And I basically just looked and saw that a lot of these offices were just below leveling up to level 3, which of course you want because then they look way better. They turn into like high rises instead of just kind of clunky cement buildings. So I started adding some unique buildings and some added a university there and stuff like that. Watch this building catch on fire, and then the one beside it immediately caught on fire, which was either just really bad luck or they actually have spreading fire. I'm not sure. I don't usually let things burn long enough to know if it spreads. Actually, that's a lie. I had one forestry area in another city. The whole thing caught fire. So yeah, it definitely spreads. But yeah, and then I was just watching this little roundabout. It's definitely not a circle still. I had a perfect circle and then it kind of ruined it. I'm fairly happy with how that highway looks with the ramps over it and stuff like that. I did have the issue of I was only putting offices around water, which wasn't always ideal. And the demand was way higher than that. So I started putting offices in different places, knowing these ones by the harbor will probably never hit 3, but that's fine. I just need to put some anyways, and only one square building, so they're not great. And I started preparing this extra little area with all the kind of infrastructure stuff that it needs. I wasn't originally going to build over here at all, so I kind of had to redirect my attention from the south side that we did last episode. That's not quite finished. I'd like to do a bit more with it, but for now I'm focusing on this. I do that big open kind of rectangle in the middle. I want to put another road in there and get a little more housing. I was thinking about having it be really non-dense and open. Figured it might look okay, but I can't build like a big central park, which I'd like to do. Aesthetically I could, but it doesn't really function in the game. Like you're not going to have a lot of people going in there. It's not going to add value and stuff like that. So I can't really do that. The only thing I could do is just, instead of putting houses in there, I could just put a small road in there and then surround that, but with parks, and have it act as one giant park area type thing, which I might do. I don't really change it past this episode, so yeah, for now we just leave it. I wanted to add, I was looking for parking lots because I forgot they added those in the last update, and I haven't really put those in a lot of places, and I should. I'm really hoping in City Skylines 2 you have commercial buildings that look more like not city center commercial buildings, so they have like their own parking lots, and you have these big plazas or strip malls or stuff like that. Because I don't live right in the city, and so I'm used to seeing actual stores, with parking and everything else, which helps to kind of spread things out as well, so you're not just having walls of buildings. And here I ended up updating this circle because it just had way too much traffic. And you can see basically what's happening is people are trying to get from the other side. So they're just getting on the highway and then immediately getting back off. So I need to put just a through road here somewhere, which I can do because I have nothing built on that side. So I might have to move the highway over a little bit or something. It'll take a fair bit of work. So I'll have to do that eventually. And that's pretty much the end of this one. Now we got the harbors and this whole little area in. So here I'm just trying to fish for a screenshot. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, thanks for watching. Comment, like, subscribe, etc. I'll see you next time. See you.